And good evening and welcome to the final episode of Season 2 of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. I'm your host, Jason DeCanio, for this June 2nd, 2023 edition. Episode 62 coming at you right now. Part 2. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're going to look at the toy line, focusing on that very important line that helped generate millions of dollars of revenue, but gave plenty enjoyment to those kids out there. We'll look at that, and we'll look at a little more of the merchandise that came along with it. But mainly the toy line today as we conclude the final episode of Season 2 of Jay's Retro Toys and Games right now. Okay, we're here and we finally made it to the final episode of Season 2. The season finale is upon us, but you guys really put a dent in all of this when we started off with the part 1 of the Turtles. With over 72 views, you love the Turtles very much, but you're going to love it even more as we are delving into the merchandising part of this whole thing, the fun part. This is the meat and bones of it. We'll look at some other things that happened with the Turtles, but the merchandise is really where we're going to go, and we're going to focus on the toy line today, as we did. There's also another main article that we have to go to. Then we'll give you some video games, stuff and other media, and wrap up this fantastic look at the history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, today is June 2nd, Friday. Hope that your summer is getting off to a great start. You hope you had a fantastic Memorial weekend, and we'll pick up in September when we start the new season, Season 3, on Tuesday. No, we'll actually do it Wednesday, September 6th. Will be our first show, episode 63. What's going to be the episode? I don't know. We'll probably give you some hints as to what we're looking at. But we might even just open up the whole can of worms and start the console war games with, of course, Atari when we come back. So that might be the big thing that opens up Season 3 and takes us way up to the top. Okay? All right. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and look at the merchandising. Now, the franchise generated merchandise sales of $175 million in 1988. At $350 million in 1989. By May of 1990, it had generated $650 million in domestic retail revenues. By 1994, it was the most merchandisable franchise, having generated a total revenue of $6 billion. Okay? Equivalent to about $11,850 million in 2022 in merchandise sales up till then. Now, during the run of the 1987 TV series, Playmates Toys produced hundreds of Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures along with vehicles, playsets, and accessories, becoming one of the top collectibles for children. Staff artists at Northampton, Massachusetts-based Mirage Studios provided conceptual designs for many of the figures, vehicles, and playsets, and creator credit can be found in the legal text printed on the back of the toy packaging. Now, in addition, Playmates produced a series of Mutant Ninja Turtle Star Trek crossover figures due to Playmates holding the Star Trek action figure license at that time. Playmates employed many design groups to develop looks and styles for the toy line, including Bloom Design, White Design, Pangea, Robinson Clark, and McHale Design. Now, the marketing vice president of Playmates, Carl Aronian, was largely responsible for assembling the talented team of designers and writers, including John Schultz and John Besheman of Pangea, who provided the seminal writing and copy for the toy line, which in turn filtered through to the various iterations of the television series. Never before in toy history did an action figure line have such an impact for over 2 decades, generating billions of dollars in licensing revenue. The series was highly popular in the UK, where in the run-up to Christmas, the Army and Navy store in London's Lewisham devoted its entire basement to everything Turtle, including games, videos, costumes, and other items. Playmates continued to produce Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures based on the 2003 animated series. The 2007 film also gave Playmates a new source from which to make figures, while National Entertainment Collectibles Association produced a series of high-quality action figures based on character designs from the original Mirage comics. And in 2012, a new toy line and a new classic toy line from Playmates were announced to be released. Now let's look at that article of the action figures. These are all action figures. They're all based on the Turtles franchise that had been produced by Playmates Toys since 1988. And we've talked about the staffed artists, and we've talked about how big the sales were. They're the third best-selling toy figure ever at the time behind G.I. Joe and Star Wars. They were influenced by the success of He-Man, G.I. Joe, and Transformers, which had promoted toy lines with animated series. Playmates worked with Murakami Wolf Swenson to produce the first Turtles animated series, which premiered in 1987 and ran for almost a decade. We know about that. Now, the first license came in the form of a role-playing game by Palladium, followed by miniatures from Dark Horse. Within a year, First Comics began to reprint the early issues in color volumes. 4 were produced, stopping at issue 11. These sold well, and Eastman and Lard were soon contacted by Mark Friedman, a licensing agent who believed he could make something of the Turtles. Now, Friedman took the idea to a variety of toy companies, only to be turned down by those who felt the concept was not popular enough to support a toy line. Only one company expressed interest, a little-known California company by the name of Playmates Toys. Not entirely willing to risk marketing a small cult comic book, Playmates insisted that a cartoon series be produced first. Development initiated with a creative team of companies and individuals. That is Jerry Sachs. He's the famous ad man of Sachs Finley Agency. They brought together the animators of Murakami Wolf Swenson, headed by award-winning animator Fred Wolf. Wolf and his team combined concepts and ideas with Playmates marketing crew, headed by Carl Aronian, and then VP of Sales Richard Salas, and President of Playmates Bill Carlson. Aronian brought on several designers and concepteer and writer John Schultz and worked out the simple backstory that would live on toy packaging for the entire run of the product and the show. Sachs called the high concept pitch green against brick. The sense of humor was honed with the collaboration of MWS's writers Walt Kubiak, Aronian, Schultz, and Sachs. The Playmates and their team essentially served as associate producers and contributing writers to the miniseries that was first launched to sell in the toy action figures. Phrases like heroes in a half shell and many of the comical catchphrases and battle slogans, Turtle Power, came from the writing and conceptualization of this creative team. As the series developed, veteran writer Jack Mendelson came on board as both the story editor and scriptwriter. David Wise, Michael Charles Hill, and Michael Reeves wrote most of the scripts, taking input via Mendelson and collaborating with collaborating writer Schultz and marketing maven Aronian. In signing with Murakami Wolf Swenson Productions, Eastman and Lard saw the production of the first Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon in December of 1987. And Playmates held up their end of the deal and produced the first series of Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures in the summer of '88. The premiere series included the 4 Turtles, Splinter, April, Shredder, Rocksteady, Bebop, and a Foot Soldier. Vehicles included the Cheapskate, the Turtle Trooper, the Turtle Blimp, and Foot Knucklehead. Each vehicle was packaged with a joke book and a small catalog. If one was to clip the pizza points located on the reverse side of the packaging, then a person could redeem them along with a small fee for other Turtle merchandise like VHS tapes, posters, bath towels, among others, corresponding firmly with its animated series counterpart. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figure line would last 10 years and develop a legacy within the toy realm. The first 3 series of figures took obvious influence from the original Mirage comics. The Turtles lacked pupils and had bulging muscles with large veins. Their bodies were shorter, more stocky, and their beaks longer and more pointy like in the comics. The blister card art was also very unrefined and reflected the comics. In fact, Shredder's pose was based directly on art from the debut issue. Each figure had at least 7 points of articulation: the neck, the shoulders, the wrists, the hips, many accessories including each character's signature weapon, and a bio card on the back of the blister package that kids could cut out and collect. Also included was a fully illustrated origin story on the card's backside, which was phased out during the 4th series. The figures boasted highly detailed sculpting, especially for the time. Colorful characters like General Trag, Rat King, Mutagen Man, Scumbug, Pizza Face, Muckman, and many others featured intricate details such as small animals crawling all over them, large scars, torn clothing, and pieces of garbage stuck to their bodies. With the release of the 2nd series in 1989, fans saw 10 entirely new figures, 5 allies and 5 enemies, 6 new vehicles and accessories, the first play set, the Turtle Battle Fun role-play sets, 9-inch and 13-inch plush dolls, and an official retro mutagen ooze. This year also marked the first time Playmates would incorporate action figures into their figures, along with the first Turtle variants in the Wacky Action subline. Each figure possessed a wind-up function that, when applied, caused the figure's limbs to rapidly move in a rhythmic motion. Wacky Action was merely the tip of the iceberg. However, as the new decade of the 90s dawned, Talkin' Turtles, Head-Droppin' Turtles, Mutations, Sewer Sports Turtles, and dozens of other fresh ideas began making their way to toy shelves. With such innovations, Ninja Turtle action figures were sure to gain a foothold in the toy market. Considering all the vehicles and inventions conceived by Donatello, Playmates couldn't have their figures without a slew of toy gadgetry to interact with. Aside from vehicles actually seen in the cartoon, Playmates went on to create a wide variety of other accessories, and these often express the humorous side of the Turtles, with gadgets commonly made out of sewer lids, trash cans, plungers, and toilet seats. However, vehicles would also include a diversity of play features, from the ripcord action of the Psycho Cycle to the electronic launching of the Turtle Pizza Thrower to the smoky bubble spout of the Bubble Bomber. And for its time, the Mutant Ninja Turtles was remarkably innovated in terms of fun action figure accessories. In the midst of action figures filling the store shelves, role-playing toys were also released, and depending on the depicted character, these typically included a ninja mask and plastic weapons. Other Turtles toys would be sold individually, such as the Turtle Communicator, Raphael's spy goggles, and Leo's Sewer Force sword. One of the most famous components of the Turtles realm is the radioactive slime Retro Mutagen Ooze, which mutated the Turtles from common house pets to mean green fighting machines. Thus, even Ooze was produced for the interaction with the Turtles figures in '89. The green slime was sold in a small container, which also included a glow-in-the-dark Ninja Turtle in mid-mutation. Aside from the classic Turtle Green, a Purple Foot variation would also become available in 1993. Ooze was an essential component to play sets such as the Flesh-O-Matic and action figures like Muckman, who could have had it run from his hollow head and out his mouth. Depending on their features, Occasional figures and accessories came with their own smaller canister of ooze to fulfill the playtime experience. Now, through the 90s, Ninja Turtles action figures would run an extensive gauntlet of different themes and incarnations, whereas Batman may have become known for hundreds of gadget-wielding action figures. The Ninja Turtles would become synonymous with dozens of historical and pop culture-related embodiments, which would be replicated by Kenner in their Legends of Batman line. Varying concepts and toy trends resulted in the many examples shown below. Like, for instance, you have the basic series figures taking on the various looks, like Leo, the sewer samurai, Don, the undercover turtle, Mike, the sewer surfer, and Raphael, the space cadet. Also released in 1990 with the basic line were the 4 turtles with storage shell. Each action figure had an opening back shell, which could store the various accessories each figure was packaged with. Donatello would be released in 1990, and the remaining 3 the following year. Mutant Military, that was different forms of military. They had rockin' and rollin' ones. You had the Wacky Wild West, the Cave Turtles, Universal Studios Monsters, Star Trek Adventurers, Jim Lee's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were designed on the famous comic book artist Jim Lee in 1995. The Mutant Masters, the Ninja Turtles sporting anime-inspired armor as ancient mythic warriors. Leonardo Wind Warrior, Donatello Water Warrior, Michelangelo Thunder Warrior, and Raphael Fire Warrior. Even with the silliest of concepts, Playmates managed to create some of the intriguing and fun figure designs for children, in contrast to other companies like Kenner, who constantly re-released figure sculpts with different paint jobs. Playmates rarely showed a cheap or careless effort in their Mutant Ninja figures, but with the rising competition, limited figure concepts, and the end of the cartoon series, a pitfall was inevitable. By the second, less violent Mutant Ninja film, The Secret of the Ooze, Playmates decided to create a figure collection based on the character's live-action appearance. Now, in contrast to the regular figures, these were made of a softer, more rubbery material to better reflect the look of the animatronic costumes used in the films. They also featured ball joints at the neck, shoulders, and hips, and each figure came with a small canister of ooze. Now, in terms of character variety, however, the movie stars' collections were in stark contrast to the wide variety seen in the basic figure lines. 1992 also saw the production of Toon Turtles. Now, these figures took on an almost stereotypical approach to being humorously cartoon-like. Each character bore a friendly animated appearance with a glittery paint job and including some type of cartoon action figure. Raphael's head spun, Michelangelo's tongue unraveled in Tex Avery fashion, etc. On the upside, the series produced a more cartoon-accurate painted version of Shredder and introduced toys not previously made for many longtime characters from the cartoon series, such as the Neutrinos and April O'Neil's co-workers Irma Langenstein, Bern Thompson, and Vernon Fenwick. A third movie hit theaters in 1993, but saw less success than its predecessors. This collection featured the Ninja Turtles once again in their movie star likeness and sporting samurai armor, as well as several other characters. The Giant Movie 3 samurai figures also came complete with removable masks and time scepters as seen in the film. Then you had the Mini Mutants. Then they had a tie-in with the WWE. They also had some unproduced toys that ran for almost 10 years. So if you collected any of those unproduced toys, they were big prototypes for the stage, and they were presented at New York toy fairs. They also had other designs on them as well. And the advertising, well, who could not forget that the commercials that started with the first series featured clips from the cartoon and narration describing the figures, which were shown in incredible toy-sized environments. And this also went for the vehicles and the play sets. The scenes from the show were overdubbed with dialogue, usually from the actual voice actors that went along with the story in the ad. And during post-movie success, many commercials relied on live-action animatronic Ninja Turtles similar to those in the Coming Out of Their Shells tour. Prime examples of these included 1992 spots from the Bubble Bomber vehicle featuring Raphael in military fatigues and bodacious birthday party figures where a surprise party was thrown in the Turtles' sewer lair. They went on a dry spell from 96 to 98. No problem. You know, every toy line goes through a dry spell. Then they had the cartoon series from 2003 to 2012, and that sparked a whole new line of stuff. Then Nickelodeon comes in 2012 and does a whole revamp of the Turtles. Popular of the Nickelodeon's new CG animated television Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. They get a first wave, a second wave, all the way down to 22 waves of action figures. Really interesting. And if you've collected them, you know where we're going with this. Then you had the 2014, 2016 movies, which sparked another toy line. With the introduction of the rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in mid-2018, a new action figure line was introduced. So now, here we are 5 years later, and that action line figure is out there producing millions. What have we gained here from the toy line? Well, one could say that if you're an avid collector of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, friends, you've got some serious money in your hands. You've taken the time to basically put together a collection that could span, depending on how long you've had it, pretty well. And if I was you, I would have an appraiser go out there and definitely appraise what you have. Did you ever see on YouTube, and there are some people out there that have just collections of toy lines in their basement or their man cave or their, series, like the ones who do the video game collections. We'll get into that in September. But the ones who basically just focus on the toy lines of all of the famous cartoons or whatever toy line came out, these are the collectors that literally have something to show for everybody and everyone in that genre, let alone, the fact that their collection is probably worth millions and millions as well because they probably got the rare to hard to find stuff. The key to collecting, get your hands on it as quickly as you possibly can when it's popular. That's the idea. We'll even talk about collecting as a hobby in our Retro Toys and Games sometime in Season 3. We'll talk about that when we get down to it. To sum up more in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we have the video games, which we'll definitely talk about big time in our video games subject. They had tabletop role-playing games. They had food tie-ins with Pizza Hut and Hostess and Shreddies, Nabisco, Chef Boyardee. Excuse me. They had a concert tour, roller coasters and amusement rides at the Dreamland, Meadowlands in East Rutherford, New Jersey, Nickelodeon Universe, and the parodies also. So there you have it, folks. A sum-up review of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 2, taking us to the end of our series here on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Before we end this show tonight, I want to thank everybody on the YouTube channel who continues to support. And if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please give this episode and all of the episodes a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to find out what's coming up later on, because you'll have access to all the good stuff. When we see you again in September 6th will be our first show. But remember, on the David3000 Network, which is where I am going to be a lot during the summertime, you will see the first 2 seasons going on his channel. So we'll pick up on Season 1, Episode 1 of Jay's Retro Toys and Games, which was Scrabble. We'll have that uploaded in a time slot that will be on Wednesdays and Fridays, 5 o'clock each week. So keep an eye out for that on the David3000 Network. I'm Jason Icanio. That's all the time we have for this edition. Thank you again for joining me here. And remember, friends, we can't do it without you, and we certainly couldn't do it without you. From all of us here, have a great night. And remember, be honest, be real, and keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to the David3000 Network for great more content like this one.